often the more money, the more often they ask you to write an essay. So as the amount and the prestige of the scholarship goes up, the number of essays you have to write goes up with it. And that's just normal if you think about why. So when we're looking at our top scholarship, every student we see has amazing grades, and they've done all these great things. So we need some way to sort of think about and what other things they bring. And I don't have a PowerPoint, I don't have anything, because there's only 3 words you need to remember to write a good essay, and they're academics, engagement, and curiosity. I have, so if you were to write an essay for UMSL, I can tell you pretty much what the person who is reading it is looking for, because I'm the person who's reading it. So, you know, if you want to know what someone who accepts you into college looks like, that's me. When things come into UMSL, I'm the one that has the final say about, you know, whether you get in and how much money you get. And really, and I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I obviously have a lot of other people that I talk to who do this with me and who I work with. And these are the 3 things everybody wants. And there is no huge mystery. So academics, the big thing is that you're able to do the work that the university wants you to do. Every university wants to accept a lot of students, and every university wants to educate as many students as possible, but no university wants to accept a student that then can't, you know, is going to immediately be in academic trouble. Because we have support for a lot of students, but there's a level at which we don't have support. So the first thing is you can do the academic work. Now in an application, actually the essay often isn't that important to get you in, but it might be for the scholarship. Now, how you know whether the essay is looking for some academic element is if they ask you a question. So there are basically 2 kinds of essays, where you're asked a question, and the personal essay where you're asked to be told about yourself. And these are a little tricky because sometimes the question asks you to tell them about yourself, so they can overlap. When I was in college, I was asked, I still remember this because to this day I think it was not a great question to ask a 17-year-old. If you were on a desert island, what 3 books would you take, excluding the Bible? And you know, and as a 17-year-old, I don't know what I said. I'm sure it wasn't great. I hope that essay has disappeared and will never be seen by anyone. But what they were really doing with that essay, they were looking for 2 things, number 1 and number 3. They wanted to see how I wrote. And they wanted to see me writing about something that there's no chance I had ever written a high school paper for. I mean, the question is often the question is kind of outrageous because what you're trying to do is make sure no one has ever seen it before. And they were trying to see whether I have what you'll say in the university is intellectual curiosity. Whether I had sort of I thought I could think about stuff, I was interested in stuff. Because at a university, there's a lot of things for students to do, and you want students who are curious about their opportunities. So these are the 2 they were looking for. Now the personal essay tends to look at 2 and 3. So if someone asks you, tell them about yourself, what you like to do, why you're going to be a good fit for this university, then they figure they're going to get their academics by looking at your grades and the other information they have. But what they really want to know is whether you're going to be engaged in the university and whether you have that curiosity. So if this is what they're looking for, what does it mean for your essay? First, look at the question. Figure out what they're asking. Not in a deep sense, but see, you know, are they asking, is this an essay where you have to show that you're a good writer? And you know, and so it looks kind of like a paper or something like that. Or is this an essay where they're looking to see how you're going to engage with the university? And that already tells you what you want to focus on. And secondly, don't try and reinvent yourself for the essay. It's really about exactly what you'd expect. Good grammar, having, you know, arguments, if you're asked to give arguments, having the essay make sense. You know, if you're asked to talk about yourself, sincerity, being authentic, being real, that is all that we're looking for. It's a very straightforward opportunity for us to get a better picture of a student, particularly if it's a student that we're thinking about giving a substantial amount of money to. Because as I said, often it's theirs where the essay is really making a difference. If I'm looking, so for me, in the Honors College, we can give up to $3,000 in addition to anything else you get in UMSL. So that's, since assuming if you're applying to honors, you're already getting some other money, it's a nice addition. The question is, all right, I don't have an endless supply of that money, and I have many more students who are applying for it than I can give it to. So, how do I decide who should get this money and on what criteria? And the essay there can really, and usually essays can really make a difference. Any questions so far before we talk about nuts and bolts and what you're doing? Yeah.
So does UMSL require an essay?
Not for admissions, but for scholarships, some scholarships, and for honors, yes. And you're going to find that's pretty standard. Some schools are still requiring essays even for admissions, but that's rarer and rarer. All right, other questions? All right, how do you write a good essay? I'm going to talk about the second kind of essay mostly. So a good academic essay, they're going to ask you a question like they asked me, and then you write a good essay exactly like you would in your history or your English class. You have to, the only advice that I can give you if I'm not actually looking at the essay is answer the question you're asked. That sounds silly, but often, particularly if you've written several of these, or if you're in your 8th application, or if it's due in the next 35 minutes because it's 11:30 and at midnight, your tendency to find an old essay and just jam it in there and hit send and hope for the best can be overwhelming. That's not a good idea. Remember that people like me read them. I'm a philosophy professor. I've been reading essays for 30 years. I've read literally tens of thousands of college essays at this point. That's a terrifying thought. But so I'm pretty good at reading these essays. And usually the admissions, on the other side of admissions, is going to be someone like me, particularly on the essay side. I mean, it'll go through the admissions office first, and then it'll go to people in the faculty or deans or people like that who are going to read and mark the essays. So if you're writing, when you're asked a question like I was about the books, then write about 3 books and why you think they're good and what you think they're meaningful. And that is really a simple and shockingly effective piece of advice, because I would say half of the essays I've seen about a specific question haven't answered it. So if you answer the question, you will be ahead of 50% of the people who are doing the essay. That seems silly, but that is the reality. So answer the question. And then if you're asked a personal statement essay, then what anyone is going to want to see is for you to talk about the things that are meaningful to you, the things that you've done in high school, and how you're going to take those 2 things and translate them into doing things at that university. And you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. So the obvious thing to talk about, let's say you were a high school athlete and you were in a couple of plays and you were in a National Honor Society, or which is really good but really standard, right? I'm describing a kind of standard good high school. That's great. Almost every university will be thrilled. Now, if you've done something, I once had a student who was the national storytelling champion, which I discovered not just the junior champion, he was the national champion at 18, and he applied it. I didn't know there was such a thing, but there was, and it was actually a huge deal. I had to go online and find out about it, and that's great. And that, of course, we accepted him. As you would imagine, he was a bright young man, but you don't need to be the national storytelling champion or have something really original. So talk about what you've done, but crucially, talk about why it was important. So if you're a football player, athletes particularly don't tend to think about this. If you're an athlete and you can talk about why
that was a really important experience for you, why being on a team mattered, what that taught you, you're going to write a really good essay. If you were in theater and you can do the same thing, you're going to write a really good essay. Because what you're going to show the college is that you are engaged. And now when we talk about doing things like study abroad or doing internships or doing all these opportunities, you're going to pick the ones that are meaningful for you. You're going to participate. You're going to be all in. And that's what we're looking for, a student who's going to be all in. Because we're going to offer a lot of opportunities, but we need the students to take them. The same thing with intellectual curiosity. Talk about the things that you find fascinating, and don't make it up. One of the best essays I ever got was about, it was the hot video game of a couple years ago. They all ran around in lanes and killed each other. Little robots ran at you and you killed them, and then there were towers you blew up. I can't remember the name. My son played it all the time.
Zombies?
No, it was a competitive game. It was like Fortnite, yeah, League of Legends. It was like Fortnite, but before. I don't know if people, I'm assuming people still play it, but it was sort of fanatical about 6 or 7 years ago. I got an amazing essay on League of Legends. And in case you think that's not a big deal, we've just started a gaming major. So, I mean, this is a huge industry, and I wish we were the only ones. Everybody's starting a game. Basically, gaming and cybersecurity, everyone is starting. And if you think of, you can do a really good essay if you can explain why that was really interesting to you, how that interest would carry over, why that shows that you're interested in different things. That's all you need to do with an essay. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, they're really much simpler than they seem. And there's often less at stake than you think. As I said, it rarely is your acceptance built on an essay. It's much more about money and the opportunities you might get that way. Any questions so far? Yes?
How long are your essays supposed to be?
They will tell you. 500 words is pretty standard, but it depends. Like when I was in South Carolina, we had this huge scholarship that was worth all sorts of things. You did 2 500-word and 1 1,500-word essay, but you also had everything paid for and got $10,000 to study abroad, and so it was worth. I mean, if you think about it, 2,500 words, which in the end could produce, the whole thing was probably worth about $145,000. It's a pretty good deal. That's a lot per word. But usually they're 500 words or somewhere there. All right, other questions? All right, I have bad news for the students particularly. Actually, no, the parents too. So I want you to, if you've got, does everyone have something to write with or write on? If not, pass these around. Yeah, you're going to do work.
You want me to pass these back?
What? I can find a couple extra pens. Go ahead and say who needs something to write with? They're not great, but they said I could use these. Let's try not a color that you can. You're just going to write notes here, so here, go ahead and pass these back, and then we'll put it back. So here's what I want you to do. It's really straightforward, and parents, do this too, as if you were applying for college. So what are the top 3 things you would want to tell a college about yourself in a personal essay? If you're applying to college, and some of you are, what is it that you want to say given what I've talked about, engagement and curiosity, that's really gonna be able to let you speak about how you're engaged, how you're intellectually curious? And like I said, don't try and invent things. If you are in theater or if you're on the band and you love being in the band, then band should be number 1. Ooh, I see the parents are like, well, this is several parents are like, this isn't so easy. So what are the three things? And give yourself room, actually, when you put them, give yourself room to write under them. Because what I hope is, actually, if you're writing essays, for those of you who are students, I want you to take this home. This is just a quick brainstorming to get you thinking about what it is that's in an essay. Right away, I'm used to silence. There's a clock here. There's a clock here somewhere. Pardon? No, I said there's a clock. No, it's nice in here. Taste. I get to wear jackets.
It's really cold in here.
Right. So who's got three so far? All right. So take the first one now and give me two things that you're going to put in a college essay about that thing. Again, remember, what you're showing is why you're engaged with it and that you're going to, engage in college. And again, this shows that you're, it's tough to say this another way, an interesting person, an engaged person, a curious person. So what are you going to say about, whatever it is, football, or band, or theater, or honor society, or being on the homecoming, or actually it doesn't have to be in school, or being on a church mission team, or I'm trying to think of things that I see all the time. Parents, I'm going to give you an extra assignment, though you can't make your child write about this. What is the top thing you think your child should put in their essay? But you have to promise me you're not then going to go home and say, you got to put this in your essay. But what is the thing you think that your child should put in their essay? The one thing that for you stands out, because it is actually helpful for students. This I know, you're at still the age of talking with mom, and you're getting into be seniors, so now mom and dad are getting better again. But it's really, your parents and your teachers are also a really good source to go ask and say, hey, well, so what sticks out about me? You'd be surprised at the answers that you get. So, so talk to your parents and talk to your teachers as you're thinking about this and as you're brainstorming this. All right, and here's the tricky part. Who wants to share? Who's got something? You can't make your kids share. That's volunteers? Come on, be brave. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, mine isn't exactly finished, but am I doing the first three?
Just do the first three. The three things that you think you want. Let's start with that.
So I see the top three things that you need to speak about things you're passionate about and why you're passionate about those things and how those things are important.
But what are the three you would write about, though, about you? What are the things that you're passionate about?
I said, for one, I love learning French. I'm passionate about it because it's something that makes me happy. I like engaging in other cultures, and I think it's important to be knowledgeable about other cultures
you're in. It's a joke, but it really isn't. If you write that reasonably well and I get it as an essay, I'm already thinking, all right, this is a student that's going to do well here. We've got study abroad programs. I mean, I'm thinking from the other end of this, all right, this is a student, I know what we can do with her. I know the things that we have available for her, which makes her immediately a good fit. And we'll be able to do a lot of, offer her a lot. She'll have a really good experience here. So, I mean, that's the back and forth that you're looking for. Did you have one?
Yes.
Go.
So I have mine about dance, and I put dance is something I've done since as long as I can remember. This has been one of my main sources of happiness, because something about the performance that makes me feel alive and able to express myself without having to use words.
Great.
Man.
That's beautiful. And again, that's another really strong sort of set of ideas and essay. Like I said, look, these aren't difficult. It's just getting to the point of being, like I said, being able to express what you really care about. Who else has got something?
My first one was, I tend to be enthusiastic about most things that I do. Like, for example, I went to a political support party and participated and got enthused, and I'm gonna do the call and door-to-door thing. And I like writing procedures at work. This is exactly the steps that one goes through to be able to do this task. I often go down a rabbit hole of learning on the internet, for example, what the latest research are about some sort of health thing or something about history. I need to learn about business for my job. I need to learn some more Excel skills and some more human resources information.
Why is the rabbit hole one particularly good?
Research.
She's
What?
interested in anything that might
Right, but
change her.
right, it comes right here. I mean, again, you want to be careful, because if you when you're writing these essays, you want to be careful and not suggest that you are easily distracted. But on the whole, to say, look, these are when I get interested in something, I tend to follow up and I tend to pursue it because I just can't help myself. That describes, half your faculty. So again, if you think about what college is, that's a trait that will serve a student well. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I wrote down scholarable because it tests the range of my knowledge, and oftentimes it expands my knowledge.
What was, I didn't hear that, I didn't understand, I didn't catch the first word.
Scholarable.
So what I would want you to do is even say more about what it is, right? So it tests the range of your knowledge. That is a really good start because it lays out that you like to be challenged, and then I would keep going with that theme of liking to be challenged. That's what makes this a really interesting thing for me.
So my first one was how I question the way the world works. So I endlessly ask questions about life and the way it works. I want to expand my knowledge, and I will never stop asking questions about life and the way the universe works.
Here's the thing with that. I really like that, but I would use that as your third. I would never open with that because it's general. I would always start with a specific thing that you're doing. And that's another sort of, as you're talking about these things, go from the more specific things to the more general ones. So I would move that to number 3 and start with something specific that you're doing. And it's just, again, giving everyone a sense of who you are and as an individual. And that is all essays are about. They are very straightforward. As I said, if you're doing an academic essay and you're being asked a question, answer the question. It is the essential thing. And think about what they're really asking. If you're doing a personal essay, which you almost always have to do, it is really what they want to see is that you're engaged, that you're going to participate in the university, that you're curious, that you're doing things, that you're going to be present while you're there. And obviously, we are all professors, so, try and avoid grammatical mistakes, complete sentences, no run-ons. I mean, all those things really do matter. If we see something that's poorly written, that's an issue. And finally, never, ever, ever use a word bigger than the one you need. It is one of the things that happens all the time. As you are writing for a university and you think, wow, they all use big words in college, and you start using words and that are much larger than the one you actually need to say what you mean. Simplicity is good. You should not write like professors. We actually are terrible writers. We read some of the stuff we write. It's horrible. We barely understand it. So be straightforward. Write in your own voice. Don't try and write like a faculty member or like a textbook. This is not meant to be that kind of an essay. It's meant to be very much for us to see what you are as a thinker, as a writer, and as a person. Questions? I think we have a whole minute, 2 minutes. Any last questions?
What do you think of those? Like I saw some essay examples when my oldest was going to college, and some of them looked like they were authors, and it was a very creative writing experience.
Those are great, and you get those, and if you can do one of those, that's sure, those are terrific. I mean, I've gotten amazing essays. You don't need those. I mean, if you can do one of those essays, if you're really creative, absolutely. I've also seen students try to do it and fail miserably, and then you've got a bad essay in your hand. And that's one of the things I want to put people off the idea, because you tend to be given as examples the very best essays that colleges get. That's not what, I mean, if you can write one of those essays, absolutely do it. If you're a brilliant writer, well, of course, we're going to be super excited to receive it, but you don't need to do that to write a really good, strong college essay. And if that's not you and how you write, then don't try it. It's just not what you need to do. Other questions? All right, well, my card is there. You don't have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to see you all. And again, do think about UMSL. It is where I'm from, so you can see. A pleasure.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Pardon?